going to be showing you guys how to create an herbal infusion, which is something that is very healing, very nourishing for you, and that is safe to do every day. Not only is it safe to do every day, but you ideally want to do this every day as a way of supplementing your plant-based lifestyle. And it's very simple to do. It's just a matter of knowledge. So if you don't know about these practices, then it can seem like something that maybe at first is kind of foreign to start to incorporate into your routine. But once you just start to see how simple it is, you're like, okay, that's a no-brainer. I'm gonna go ahead and start practicing that and reaping all of the benefits. So I'm gonna do this in 2 different parts. So for the first part, I'll go ahead and demonstrate for you just how simple this is to do. And then in the second part, I'll talk about the ingredients and the herbs that I have selected and that I suggest that you consider for your regimen as well, and some of the properties of those ingredients and how you can use nature as not only your remedy, but as your prevention. All right, so first thing you want to do is gather your supplies. So I highly recommend that you obtain either some mason jars that are the larger size. So this is a 32 ounce. And then you can see in comparison, this is probably what most are more familiar with, is the 16 ounce mason jar. So for your infusion, you do need a larger quantity of water than what the 16 ounce can hold. So you want to get the 32 ounce. It doesn't have to be a mason jar, but it does need to be a glass container that has a lid that you can put on top of it and it fits pretty snug, okay? So I've got 2 mason jars. I use one to do the original or the initial soaking of the herbs in, and then after they've soaked for between 4 to 10 hours, I usually go for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, just let it do overnight kind of thing. So after that, then you want to strain this mixture into another vessel, and I usually just use like a little small mesh strainer. I've heard some people say that they use something like I can't recall what it is, but you can use different things, or you can just keep it simple and just use this type of strainer. Okay, so you got your 2 mason jars. Of course, you're gonna need your herbs, right? So you don't wanna infuse just any herbs, go out and, oh, I got some herbs, I'm gonna infuse this. Some of them do better than others. So like I said, I'll cover in more detail about the specific ones that I use and the properties of them. But just to give you some suggestions, since we're discussing the materials you need, you can consider using burdock root. You can use nettle. Nettle is a favorite of mine. I love nettle. And you could also do dandelion leaf. Okay, so if you can see like the properties of it, isn't this beautiful? It's really pretty, right? Nature is so healing and it's so amazing. So that was dandelion. I'll give you more of a close-up of nettle. This is one of my homegirls right here. This is my favorite. I just love how nettle tastes. I know that it's kind of earthy for most people as far as how it tastes. And then the burdock root, you can clearly see that it's like chips and little pieces of the root, dried. Okay, so those are 3 that you can definitely use. You can also do comfrey. You could do mullein. And pretty much just kind of stick with those. But you got options, right? That's enough options for you to get started. So you could just choose between one of those. If you don't know anything about herbs and you just want to start somewhere, these are the 3 all-stars I would say. Would be nettle, specifically nettle, because nettle is very safe for pretty much everyone. Now again, you know, these are suggestions. Everyone is different. You're going to have to do your own research and make sure that you're considering any pre-existing conditions you may have, your history. Clearly, I don't have all that while I'm watching this tutorial, so you have to make sure you are your first caretaker, right? You consider everything you got going on, look it up, and you know, find out what interactions may occur for you. But for the most part, most people can do nettle safely, even pregnant women and those who are nursing, you know, breastfeeding. Nettle is a good one. Okay, so we'll get started with the demonstration. You can also get a measuring cup. I love to teach people to start to really just come away from having to be so exact and precise and kind of be more intuitive, and also just observe the things they're doing so that you can form more of a natural rhythm with the processes. So with that said, what I usually do is just kind of eyeball Or you could even use your thumb as a measurement. So like, you know, this is about an inch from the tip of your thumb to your first, what do you call this, line on your thumb. So if you measure from there to there, that's about an inch, and you want to use about an inch amount of herb in your 32-ounce jar. Now I can't really account for other sizes of jars and containers, but if you got the 32 ounce, you can take that measurement, and you want to include about that amount of herbs as far as the height. Okay, so it's a lot of herbs, right? This is going to be beyond what most of us are used to with the little cute little tea bags, you know, like this is medicinal. Okay, so this is a step up. So you need more of a quantity of herbs. Okay, so with that said though, I'm going to actually use some burdock root today. And I'm also going to do the dandelion leaf. Ooh. And you know, Nettle is looking at me over there. Nettle is my homegirl. She's like, you know, oh, you're not using me today. No, I'm gonna get right back to you, you know what I'm saying? I ain't forgot about you. I'm just gonna use some of these other ones right quick, you know. All flowers matter. Every flower is beautiful and unique and appreciated. Okay, so I need a little more. I'm gonna add a little more dandelion leaf. We're almost done, you guys. This is pretty much it. So you're gonna pour your herbs in there, and I do this intuitively. Again, follow your own guidance and your own research, okay? Don't you say Stephanie told me to use 3 cups of burdock root. I did not. You gotta follow your own guidance, okay? So you go ahead and pour. Now this is important also for your glass container. Make sure that it's not cool. Make sure that it's not cold. Room temperature or higher. You could even run it under the outside of it under some hot water to warm up the glass, because the molecules of the glass, if they're too cold, they'll expand when the hot water contacts it, and it'll cause the container to crack or to break. You also can notice that I have a cloth under it just to safe side it, because I don't want no glass all over the place is just a headache, right? Why do that? So I just make sure the glass is warm enough and make sure that I keep something under it when I'm pouring. And from there, you just pour your boiling water over the herbs, get into it, maybe add some intentions, set some intentions while you're pouring it. You know, oh yes, this is healing, this is nutritious, this is nourishing, this is restorative, right? You can speak to your water and speak to your herbs and make it energetically healing. All right, so I'm gonna borrow a lid because I clearly need a lid, and we'll seal it on top, and that's it. You just let it chill out, just let it sit on the counter. You can stand there and watch it. No, you don't need to you don't need to do that. But you could just and I also usually don't ever screw the lid super tight on, because I just found that it causes it to vacuum seal, and then it's just like you gotta try to pry it off at the end. So I usually kind of keep it loosely. Now if you got kids and stuff and pets or whatever running around, maybe you want to put the lid on and push it back, right? Clearly, like, use good common sense. But that's pretty much it. And then, like I said, after about 8 hours of letting this sit, you can prepare this, make it like a nighttime ritual, right? So every night before you go to bed, you want to do exactly what I just did. Wake up in the morning, strain it. What I like to do when I'm straining my herbs is also I'll use something to kind of press the herbs and kind of squeeze more of the concentrated liquid into it. You don't have to do that. You can just strain the herbs, throw the herbs away, or you can reuse them, make you a nice little tea. I got lots of tips to share with this. So one thing you can also do, for a lot of times, like especially when you're new to this, the taste may be a little discouraging, like off-putting. I don't want to do this. You have to, number one, train yourself to like what is good for you. Okay, so I'm very good about that. If I know something is good for me and I don't really like the taste right away, I'll just kind of mind over matter, be like, this is good for me. You can kind of rewire your system, your way of thinking about it, so that you'll start to begin to like it. Okay, if you're not in that space, what you can do is just hook it up a little bit, right? So you can add things. Again, you want to try to stick with more herbal things, you know, natural things. I would not even suggest using like agave to sweeten it. Like, don't do that. Just use the plants in their pure form. So I like to use cinnamon. You can also use things like orange peels, dried orange peels, or even fresh ones. You can use star anise is one of my favorites. I just love how this tastes. And some people also do, you know, sprinkle like cinnamon into it. you can just get creative, like find the things that you like. Now, the thing about those, the additions to it, you're gonna pretty much put those in your cup of tea that you make in the morning, okay? So you've got your infusion in the morning, you've strained it into a new jar, and then after you've strained it into a new jar, in the morning, you can make, like, boil a fresh pot of hot water so that you can make it hot. Get you a cup and pour the hot water and equal parts of the hot water and the infusion in there, so you have a warm cup of tea. And then, because a warm cup of tea is so soothing, right? And then you can just add your little additions to that cup of tea. Some of these things you don't want to allow them to just continue to steep quite as long as the fresh herbs. All right. Let's see, what else to share with you guys? Okay, so as far as how much you're gonna do, in order for this to be a medicinal treatment or supplement, you want to do this at least 3 times a week. I recommend doing it every day. Just make it a daily ritual. As far as how much, you ideally pretty much want to drink the entire 32 ounces. At minimum, I would say 2 cups. Okay, so that's gonna be 16 ounces of the drink per day. And then like I said, I'll discuss the healing properties of all of the herbs and everything in the next video. Hey, I'm Stephanie Sunshine. This is segment number 2, where I'm teaching you about herbs and herbal infusions, herbal remedies, different ways to supplement your lifestyle with the healing properties of nature. All right, so in the other video, the first video, I covered the techniques that you need. I mentioned how you can create your own herbal infusions and also some of the things that you can use when you're creating those infusions. So I'm going to go into more detail in this video to talk about some of the specific properties and also to get you to think about your intuitive connection to these different plants. Okay, so I have a few of my favorites here, and you can also see, as I demonstrated from the other video, this is an herbal infusion that is being prepared, and you know, if you want to know the specific details about this, just watch the first video, the first part of the video. All right, so next I'm going to talk about burdock root. Okay, so burdock root, first let's get a look at it, right? So you obviously can't smell this right now on camera, but when I smell burdock root, it reminds me so much of when I was a kid. I used to love sunflower seeds, you know, just in the shell, and you chew them, crack them, eat them. So it smells like that to me. It's a very earthy and just, it's a very fragrant kind of smell, but not in a floral way, of course. It's roots, right? So anytime you think about making different herbal creations in your kitchen, just be mindful of the fact that you're using basically just different parts of plants, right? So some of the herbs that you're going to use are made, are parts of the leaves of the plant. Some of it is parts of the stems, maybe the flowers, and then you have your roots. Now, anytime that you're using roots, you want to really think about what is a root. A root is, of course, like that from which everything else grows and sprouts up, right? So when we think about roots, and burdock root in particular, there's a very strong connection to the earth. There's a strong connection to the deep soil and just the inner parts, you know, the parts that are not seen within the land, within the earth. And so we have the ability to tap into these plants and allow them to speak to us in a way that will be very revealing. So to think of it kind of in a metaphysical way, when you're having infusions, herbal infusions, and you're eating, or even if you're just eating root plants, you can think about being able to connect to the deepest parts of yourself. Maybe the parts that are hidden, maybe the parts that you don't visit very often, but you know that those are foundational and they have the potential to anchor you. Some of us, myself included, do not have knowledge at this time, specific knowledge of some of your ancestry, right? So there's a need to be able to anchor yourself and root yourself. And plants can be a great way to recall some of those memories, and to, even if you can't specifically recall the specific knowledge, maybe you'll just be able to receive revelations through the plants themselves. Okay, so whatever you're taking in, of course, it becomes part of you, and you are part of it. We are all one, we're connected. So plants are a great way to just remind yourself that we are connected in that way. A lot of times we can become removed, especially when it comes to food, and the processes that are used in modern times to mass produce things, it has really kind of severed our ties to nature and to the earth. So drinking infusions that are made from the root parts of plants is a great way to honor those connections. Some of the specific properties for burdock root. When you think about burdock root, you can think about like a blood purifier. It was also used by Native Cherokee people as far as being able to clear up and help heal or be a remedy for venereal diseases. So, of course, like STDs, things like that, or just things that are going on with your reproductive system in general. But again, it's a blood purifier, and it has the ability to really help to really make sure that those parts of you are healthy and well, which will in turn affect your whole system. So if you were to research, for example, burdock root and the properties of it, that's why you're going to have a whole list of things that it can help with, is because it's foundational. All right, so burdock root, really good. The next herb that I'm going to mention or explain or teach, this is dandelion. Okay, so these are dandelion leaves that are cut, let you get a look at it so we can keep our connection going with the plants, right? So this is dandelion. Now you can also, of course, eat dandelion, like the leaves, and use that. I talk about that a lot with making smoothies, things like that. Different preparations will serve different purposes. So dandelion root, or dandelion leaves, I'm sorry, in particular, are very good for your liver, and so it helps to remove toxins, and again, it helps to cleanse the blood, because whenever we are exposed to different environmental factors, things like that, even if you have the healthiest diet, sometimes it can still be a lot on your immune system. So dandelion root, I keep saying root, but dandelion in all forms, honestly, every part of the dandelion plant. And yes, it's just that little thing that we call a weed, the little yellow that's on the side of the road somewhere. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So dandelion as well as the burdock are great ways to remove toxins from the blood. Dandelion also, since of course it helps with your liver, it's also great for digestion and being able to restore your digestive health and well-being. We know that digestion affects everything in the body, so you can pair those two together. Burdock root and dandelion go really well together. Okay, those are two. And then we have, drum roll please, the lady of the hour. Now it's interesting because I actually have some of another herb on top here, so don't look at it. Actually, you can look at it, but this is clover and some raspberry, so I have that on top. But if you look beyond that, I have nettle, and nettle is, let's smell it. This just smells so good. This is like when you have a jar of nettle or a bag or whatever you're using, it's like you're holding Mama Earth just right here. It's like, this is my Earth lady. Okay, so nettle, again, long list of benefits. Main ones will include women's health. So it can help to ease the issues that may arise when we talk about menopause, also pregnancy, also breastfeeding. This can help to keep up your milk supply and really nourish you in a way that you'll be able to in turn nourish your baby. So it's like the great mother. And this is also great, I forgot to mention, for all of these herbs, wonderful supplement for iron. We're not even going to talk about all the vitamins and minerals that are included. Calcium is really, really abundant within these herbs. Nettle also in particular has another use. I know many people suffer with or deal with allergies, and it can help you to combat those symptoms as far as, a lot of the mucus and things that arise. Also, again, going back to burdock too, there's great benefits with burdock root as far as mucilage, like being able to pull mucus from the body, which we know mucus can be the cause of most, if not all, disease within the body. So burdock root, and that's also, you can think of kind of the same, similar effects as sea moss. And we know sea moss is definitely gaining a lot of attention for those specific properties, being able to remove mucus. And burdock root can also work a lot in that same way. So nettle, we got dandelion, we got burdock root. Now, those are going to be basically kind of like foundational if you're doing an infusion. So if you're doing an herbal infusion, once again, you don't want to just use everything. For example, you don't want to do an infusion for something like lavender, okay? But I do have lavender here chilling in the background. We got these back here because these are kind of like our herbs or flowers. Like if you think about flowers, those are the things that you want to just enjoy the aroma of them, the fragrance of them. You want to admire their beauty, and you want to almost preserve them as they are. You don't want to, like, you can still definitely have them in hot tea, but you wouldn't want to just expose them to a long amount of time soaking, because it's just not what they're for. Okay, so this is lavender. Lavender, you know, is very calming, very soothing. It's such a beautiful fragrance, and it's something that if you think about, once again, just making a connection from your spiritual or your metaphysical aspects of self to something physical and tangible, well, lavender is purple. So purple helps with higher awareness, mental processing, and it can help to calm those things down. So a lot of us just have our mind just scrambling around, running around. We're trying to lay down and go to sleep, and it's tough, and you have insomnia. So doing something like, I would definitely recommend having an herbal infusion ready, like having some of that you've prepared, you know, ahead of time. For nettle in particular, nettle to me is just it's almost like a neutral, one of the more neutral herbs that you can just add things to. So if you have nettle and then you want to add like maybe a little lavender inside a little small tea infuser, and put that in a glass, pour some hot water over it before you go to bed, sleep like a baby. So lavender is great. One of my favorites, star anise. I'll let you take a look at these. Let's see if I can get a whole one out of here. It's a little tricky, but that's what they look like. Star anise. Okay, so a little bit of these goes a long way. You can put one of these in your tea, your cup of tea, and you'll taste it. It's very aromatic. It smells delightful. And then this is just an example for you guys, but this is orange. Just little dried pieces of orange. And get creative with your, you know, the tinctures and things you're making. You can use orange peels. You know, if you are eating a piece of fruit and you have some of the peel left, just use that and put it in your tea. You can do ginger, pieces of ginger. Cinnamon. Cinnamon is another wonderful thing that you can use to accent the tea that you create. I love cinnamon because to me it represents abundance, and it represents kind of like just, you know, an air of, you know, where you just think cinnamon is just very strong. It has like it calls to you in a way of like being able to connect to material objects for the things that they can do for you, to help elevate you, basically, or help to ground you enough to be able to raise your vibration. So cinnamon is another wonderful option for you. And yeah, like I said earlier, just get creative with it, and you can think about these things in a way that makes sense for you. Definitely do your research, look things up, especially if you have a pre-existing condition, or if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, you know, on any kind of medication. You want to make sure that you have an understanding of how these different plants are going to interact with anything that you're taking or any condition that you have, just because these plants are powerful. A lot of prescription medications and things are modeled after the plants that are found in nature and their properties. And, you know, we don't think of them all the time as medicine, but they really are a form of medicine, and especially if you use them regularly. Also, going back to a little more information for you, because that just made me recall the fact that burdock root also can be used as treatment for cancer. So, you know, some of the most severe or extreme conditions can be treated with plants. Now, it does require, it's more of a gradual thing, okay? So, as I mentioned, the pharmaceuticals and things, they're modeled after nature, but of course, when man makes something, what do? They usually like ramp it up and they want it to be done faster and quicker, right? But that's not always the best way. You know, a lot of times when you skip stages and parts of the process, you skip over some of the things that you need to go through, right? So when the body is healing and restoring itself to a place of health, a lot of times gradual can be best. It does require commitment. It requires you to be devoted to honoring your body in a way, and also being devoted to just getting back to nature and learning how to be more natural. You already are natural. Nature is you. And so this is just a way for you to restore to those parts of yourself that you may have forgotten.